Good morning, guys, or actually it's good afternoon. How is everybody doing today, this pre-Thanksgiving day? I am DrSharnael Wolverton Sehon, and today I was going to talk to you a little bit about the science of the name / law of attraction. I hope and choose that you will tag and share this with as many people as possible, because I'm about to unpack some really cool revelation that I've been kind of chewing on and I'm still chewing on. Hey Blake, how's it going? So let's talk about covenant, union, the names of God, and how all that affects not only the inside of us and our cells, our health, our mindsets, but let's talk about how that even affects our lives and our biofield around us. Those of you who have heard me, hey Anastasia, some of you may have heard my teaching before on covenant. Several years ago, I did a series on covenant and what that really is, what union is, what divine partnership is, and some of the traditions of covenant in the past, like even in the wedding ceremony, what they would do, and or between tribes or between families. If you haven't ever listened to that, you can go to my bookstore and just look up covenant teaching, and it's in there. But I'll give you a little bit. There are lots of different traditions of covenant, and even in the wedding ceremonies, if you may be familiar with some of the Jewish customs where they would, way in the past, actually cut themselves. They would put a little bit of drop of blood in the wine. They would exchange cups, and whether it was a union of two people coming together, whether, hey Mike, two people coming together in union for a wedding, or two tribes coming together for the purpose of protection, or two cities coming together, they would drink the blood with the wine. And so that was an act or a symbol of each of them coming into receiving each other's blood within the body, which that's not undoable. And so once you take that DNA in, that was a symbol that they were becoming one with each other. They were coming together to work together. A lot of times they would take the name as well, which having a good name is a really good thing. And so when you would give that name, you were giving your reputation to that person, that protection of that person, the credibility that comes with the name. And so some of you may be familiar with American Indians too. They would do Indian covenants where they would cut themselves and they would touch. My hand is holding the camera, but they would hold hands a certain way, and the blood would go in that way instead of drinking it. And even going back to the cups, at the end of the ceremony with the cups, they would smash the cups so that no other person would be able to drink from those cups, which is, that's a whole teaching of itself. When the Passover and Jesus, and they drank from the cups, and go listen to that teaching. But so let's talk about that, how that applies today with union. It was interesting. I'm getting all these texts, excuse me. It was interesting studying about the names, and the video that I did even yesterday talking about the names of God and who all of those things are, and provision, miracles, resurrection, life, all of those things that God is. And we talked about that when we ask in His name, that He is willing to manifest those things through us and to us and around us. And I have heard in the past about a guy who actually took the name Rockefeller, and he had all these benefits because he took the name Rockefeller. Now, Rockefeller, we know, is kind of like an older name from the past, where this guy had tons of money and had a great reputation, great credibility. And when this guy took the name as an imposter, he saw that he could get into restaurants, he could get into clubs, he could make business deals that maybe he couldn't before. There was something about that name that actually gave him credibility and a reputation, because of the previous people who used the name, who actually were walking in truth and love and all those things, and success. And so now this is a bad way to do it. You don't want to lie and take someone's name, but there's also bad connotations with other names. Like, imagine taking the last name Hitler or Manson. God rest their souls. Charles Manson just passed, but you know, there's certain connections in the mind and in the heart, and even, you know, how we feel about certain people's names because of experience and what people have done in the past. And what about the names of God? You know, the name of God and the names of God, it's, you know, here the same thing is the names of God: provision, resurrection, life, love, peace, understanding, wisdom, all-knowing, fully present. You know, and when we take those names, when we ask in those names, then we are in Him. We are taking that name, and when we are in covenant with Him, we have lots of options where we can either make His name really famous and really good, or we can actually do things and make choices that would take His name in vain. And, you know, we get the opportunity to remember and represent Him, or represent Him to many, many people in a positive, loving, beautiful way. Or we can, and which gives Him glory and fame and honor and all those things. Or we can do the opposite, which is using His name in vain. Of course, many of you, and even me in the past, would think of using His name in vain, meaning cussing or swearing or what have you. But there's another dimension to it. There's another dimension of, quote, calling yourself a Christian or a follower of Christ, or someone who has taken the understanding and the belief of who God is and salvation and love and all those things, but then not representing that in a way where people would be drawn to it. And so number one, when we're taking His name, let's remember that whatever we ask in His name, that Jesus says that He's willing to do that, meaning He's willing to manifest those things in order to give the Father glory. And again, the word we looked up, when we ask, that scripture yesterday, when we ask, the actual interpretation was to make a cry, to make a request. That could be spoken, that could be thought, that can be felt. But whatever that is, it's a frequency. And when we are that frequency of whatever it is in His name, whether it's provision, life, love, resurrection, all those things, then He manifests that in us, through us, to the world and in our biofield, and then we get that match. So there's something really different. It's basically the law of attraction, which is kind of maybe oogie boogie to some of you, but it's just science. When you are love, you get love. When you are life and truth and light, then you get those things. And so it's all about sound. When we are provision and the sound of provision and the sound of God, then we get that. And it's just like a tuning fork. Think about it. If you take, if a tuning fork is just laying there, not doing anything, not a big deal, not a great, necessarily not a reputation or anything. When it's in function, when it's in action, when it's struck or something hits it to make it become a sound, let's say a sound of C, guess what? Now it's C. That tuning fork becomes C, and that C goes throughout the whole body into the biofield, and it can radiate that sound throughout the biofield, throughout the world, and it can actually tune other people to that sound. And so I just think it's really interesting that it says that I will do that in your name. That's the Strong's 4160. It says that means manifest. I will manifest C. I will manifest E, D, whatever. And in this case, when I am love, then God will manifest love through me, to me, in me, and around me. That goes into my biofield, and the law of attraction brings love to me. I am love, therefore I see love. Love comes to me, and loving things come to me. So that's one thing. The other scripture I wanted to look at is, you shall know the truth. Hey, Jasmine. You shall know the truth. Hey, Brent. And the truth shall set you free. Okay, let's break it down. You shall know the truth. That word know actually means intimate. even sexually, and I don't mean we're having sex with God, but I mean that level of intimacy where you truly know someone so well, that knowing, when you know truth, when you know love, when you're so intimate and so in true covenant with union of God, then the truth shall set you free. And here, when you break down the original text of that, it doesn't mean it shall set you free. It means you become love. You become the sound. You are manifested truth and love. And so that, again, it goes into making you, transforming you. You are a new sound when you know the truth. When you're intimate and when you're in true covenant and union where he is you and you are him, and there's no separation, but we're one, then that truth is a sound that goes out into the biofield, and it, quote, sets you free, and also the real translation is you become that sound, you become that tuning fork, and therefore you bring it to you. Now, what about missing the mark? Okay, sin is just missing the mark. Sin is just not being fully true to who you are and what you're doing. It could be having to do with a job. It could do with money. It could do with health. It could be with any choices that you make that are missing the mark. That would be considered, quote, sin. And again, that could be oogie boogie. But when we are missing the mark, and when we're doing things that aren't necessarily bringing fame to God, then it's also doing the same thing inside of your body, and it's doing the same thing in the biofield. Think of the scriptures that talk about if you're not love, then you're just a clangy, ugly sound. And that sound will bring more clangy, ugly sounds back to you. And so we have to be very thoughtful and very heartfelt in what we're thinking, what we're feeling, and be very disciplined with those things. Because again, I choose to make his name famous. I choose to make love famous, and to not use his name in vain, and not have his name, but let other people think that that's a representation of who God is. Okay, so let's wrap this up. Let's be loved today. Let's all be loved. Let's remember love, the sound of love. Let's be loved. Let's be that tuning fork and that sound, and the names of God, all the names of God. Let's remember, I am that I am. When we are those things, when God is in those things fully through us, to us, and all around us, then we get those things back. So number 2, let's remember the truth, which again is love and knowing, and that tuning fork of being something bigger than us. Remembering that God in us can touch every cell of our body and be fully in us. That's the fullness. It's not something that you seek on the outside. It's not something that you press for. It's not something that you strive for. It's easy to remember compared to trying to learn something. Let's just remember, it's already been in us. It's in our DNA. We're created in our image. So all we have to do is remember it. And let's give him fame today. Let's give him a good reputation, because God knows, literally, that there are people who have, including myself, used his name and made great, loving representation. I choose to be heartfelt. I choose to be love on legs, and I choose for people to feel him when I walk in the door, to be present, to truly represent him. The word present means to be present. And we have all been present, just like Superman. We were here with great powers. We just have to remember the powers within us and be all of those powers, whether it's health, resurrection life, miracles, shalom, peace, understanding, all those things that we are. So check me out on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. If you're not my friend, hit the friend button above. I choose for us to all be peace today. I'll be loved, to have hearts of thanksgiving, because it's pre-Thanksgiving, and you guys enjoy your time. Enjoy your time with your family or whatever it is you're doing. Or enjoy your time in God, in the names of God, making his name famous and loving well. Everyone, let's love really, really well in this season. Let's remember truth. And I love all of you. I send all of you love. Check out my Divine Science, my YouTube, all those things. So let's connect further, and let's remember more things together, because this thing, love, there's a science to it. And when we remember love, when we remember health, guess what? My health showed up. My love showed up. And I am a walking testimony of what happens